Good day. Um, I'm not going to read it just for the sake of time, but I'm looking at Luke chapter 10, verses 29 to 37. Familiar story to most of us, the story of the Good Samaritan. For some of us, a Good Samaritan was not there when we needed, when we were vulnerable, weak. Oftentimes, those first times of betrayal and having life kind of unearthed in us and around us happened when we were young. Certainly the case for me, and that left many of us um, with a diminished capacity for trust. And maybe this any abuse we incurred um, in this world has reminded us to work extra hard to protect the vulnerable. But in all likelihood, it has on some level immobilized us and left us with diminished capacity um, for intimacy. Um, and that's both acceptance and embrace of who we are, but also connection with God and connection with others. Recently, I was speaking to a group of friends and talking about the fairly famous book I think that a lot of people are familiar with, "Are You My Mother?" where this little duckling is going around and he's trying to identify who his mother is, and he goes to all these things, including like backhoe or an excavator or something, and we all we all feel frightened and alone. We all can at times, and but those of us who haven't been had the opportunity or haven't had that kind of foundation of love and acceptance, um, we don't feel like we have a home base to return to, a safe place to return to. So we all feel that. Sometimes, some of us, it has longer and lasting effects. A place to belong is great, and I see lots of efforts, religious and secular, to create spaces of belonging. But they can fall short. They can come up a little hollow. Um, but because we need to know that we need to go back to the beginning in some of this and know and understand what is essentially the heart of Jesus' message. Um, Alone, first of all, was never part of God's plan for us. We weren't designed to be alone, and this is far more than just our quest for many of us, most of us probably, for our romantic partners. We're designed for connection, community, for family. God's invitation is always to community and to family, and so is His working out the journey of healing and wholeness, and the journey to maturity and all those things is designed. We're designed for that to happen in the context of family or community, and in this case, I would liken the two, and say they have essentially the same meaning. Some of us have hurt. Most of us have hurt and carry such a sense of abandonment, though. Sometimes I've heard this referred to as a spirit of rejection or an orphan spirit or whatever. But it's hard for some of us who in that situation to tell love, to be able to distinguish love from just being used. And maybe we even have a propensity to use others just to have someone to feel safe. Regardless, we enter into relationships that aren't really based in love, and then when abuse and misuse take place, we are no longer able to discern or distinguish between the two. There's an old song, and I'm thinking of more of the comedic act, but there's an old song, "Looking for love in all the wrong places," and to the degree we are broken, we have surely looked for love in all the wrong places. So the question is, is Jesus, when I or you are presenting Jesus, um, sometimes referred to as the friend of sinners, and when I present Jesus to people, it's not so much sometimes that they don't believe. Sometimes they believe. Something in them says this makes a lot of sense, but it can be really hard to initiate that process of trust, because it's all about trust. Old Testament word trust, New Testament word faith, essentially the same thing. Um, so is this Jesus just another proposition or a person, if we have that sense, who's going to let us down? Uh, I just need to say with absolute confidence, my experience with Jesus and that of countless others is that he is exactly what our broken hearts need. His gentleness not only calls us into intimacy, but also heals our hearts so that they can learn to receive love again or for the first time. Jesus will mess with your life outside as and how you interact with the world because he'll rearrange the order of things and the people in your lives over time. But he is ever gentle, the gentlest with your heart because he understands the the complexity and the depth and the hurt. And he actually is his way is to love us into wholeness. His impact. First and foremost, I think once we have a glimpse of him, it changes our perspective of ourselves. His love draws us into a far more complete picture of who God made us to be. And that changes things like who we let into our lives. Um, and it also fills us with the capacity to impact the world around us with this same love. We become, as the Romans mocked in the early church, little Christs, as it were. Um, we become Christians, and so rescued, as it were, from the one who was misused and rejected, we become healed and empowered. We become something very different that can be quite um, shocking and stark to those around us who've seen us caught in patterns that have been lifelong. And you're never beyond. If you have breath in your lungs today, it's not too late for that change to start. Even if you've been a Christian but remained locked in pain and trauma, it's not too late today to begin that process of yielding in a way that perhaps you haven't done before. It's always good to hand our broken heart, or the disaster that others and ourselves have made of our lives and hearts, and to then watch. And I encourage you to do that. Just watch the beauty that he can make from even the greatest brokenness. As I've said before, there's an offer on the table, an offer of love. And I would just pray and encourage you to, if the Spirit is prompting, because it takes that you would say yes to this offer of love. God bless you. Have a great day.